Hi guys, welcome to another video from Overbite Gaming, and today I want to talk about, I finally got around to it, City of Heroes Rebirth. Now, I've got videos on the channel basically explaining how big of a fan I was of City of Heroes, the MMO that closed down 10 years ago, more than that now actually, closed in 2012. And there were a number of fan projects that I looked at the time, but none were ready to be played or anything like that. In the interim, they are. The source code was widely disseminated, and that allowed for the running of private servers. And the one I want to talk about today is Rebirth. There's a couple of reasons why Rebirth specifically. The first being that some of them have a few rules when it comes to not being able to stream, and so we'll take videos down and stuff like that. Rebirth doesn't. Because it is using the source code of the original game, though, it could be considered pirated software. So if you see ads, I haven't put them on. It's been claimed by NCSoft or something. Hopefully not, though. They're not making any moves to shut down the servers, so they're not making any money off the license because they closed the game. So hopefully they'll just leave us be and let us enjoy the game that we last got to play 10 years ago. I think the actual new servers actually started cropping up in 2019, so I am a couple of years behind the times. The second reason that I went with Rebirth is because it's apparently the closest one to vanilla, so what I was used to playing back in the day, which is obviously of huge importance to me because obviously I want to recapture that feeling that I had back then. There's a few differences that I've noticed. Well, there's one real main one, but I'll get on to that. So, City of Heroes, also City of Villains, which was obviously the villain version of the game. You could be a bad guy. And Going Rogue, which is you create a character that you could flip-flop. So you could be like an anti-hero sort of thing, which is pretty cool. That's all in there. In fact, they have stuff that wasn't in the game at its closure. There was a system for creating missions that they took out shortly before it closed, and that's in there as well. I haven't actually tried it, so I couldn't say whether it works properly, but there you go. So it's an MMO where you play a hero or a villain. You pick your archetype, so you've got stuff like natural, which is obviously just trained to human maximum and stuff. You got mutation, which obviously, think X-Men. Magic, tech, so Iron Man or Scarlet Witch, say, although she's technically a mutant, but you know what I mean. Doctor Strange, there you go, that's a better analogy. One thing you can't do on these servers is create clones of existing heroes, so your favourite hero from DC or Marvel or anything like that, you can't do it, which is good in my opinion, because it's more interesting to see other people's original creations rather than the 95th Batman clone, so I like that personally. So it also has a tremendous character creator. There's just so many options, both visual and power-wise. The way the powers work is you pick two different power sets when you start. So you have your main power, which is associated with your archetype and the class that you pick. You have archetypes, you have classes underneath that, then you have the powers underneath that. And then you have a secondary power as well. So, for instance, the ones that you'll be seeing in the video, I've taken footage of both my hero and my villain. And the hero is a rock armor with super strength. So his main power is rock armor, because he's basically the character I played back in the day. Because I just got him to the point. He was the first character in an MMO I ever max leveled, and I got him to the point where he would just be able to passively heal himself faster than the enemies could damage him. I could just leave him in a bunch of mobs and just go and get a cup of coffee or something, and he'd be absolutely at top health when I came back. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed that power fantasy. And the rock armor, so you have your basic rock armor, you have stone skin, which is just a passive buff that you don't need to activate. And when you turn the rock armor on, you get rocks out of you. There's brimstone armor, which deflects different damage, but has a unique look. You can have these all on at the same time as well. You don't need to pick one or the other. And I think the top one is granite armor. I haven't got that in the new game yet, but I had it back in the day. And you just turn into like a big Rocky Titan type thing. Probably the most useful one is rooted, where you sort of grow a big sort of rocky feet, which root you to the earth. You can still move, but you're moving a lot slower. But if you buff that right, that heals you like a motherfucker. That's where all my advantages were coming from. And then he's got super strength as well, which is your basic punching and stuff like that. You also get a power from the archetype. My hero has, I can't remember what it's called, but he just throws like a globet of like acidy stuff at people because he's a mutant and they have acidy stuff. I guess it's his cum or something, I don't know. And my villain has throwing knives. So they do a fair bit of damage, and certainly in the early game they're really good to supplement because you don't have a lot of attacks and everything's on a cooldown, even your basic attack. So it's nice to have that extra option to keep dealing damage rather than have to wait for everything to come back up. Once you hit about level 5, I think it is, you get access to your first travel power. Now, I've always picked flight. I picked super speed on one character one time to try it out, and it's not as good in my opinion. I like flight because you just are able to avoid so many wandering mobs as you go from mission to mission, and you don't have to fight your way in everywhere. And obviously if you're using super speed, you're fast, yes, you might be able to get away, but you still have to run by people rather than fly like a mile over their heads and not have to worry about it. One thing about flight that was bad in the original game is you had to get it in order. So the very first power you got with flight was hover. And it is basically flight, but very, very slow. So you'd have to put up with that until you leveled up enough to be able to pick actual flight as a superpower, and then you were much faster and it became much more livable. Now, in Rebirth, you don't have to pick hover. You can pick flight straight away. I don't know how I feel about that, because as clunky and as nasty as it was, only being able to like drift about very slowly, there are some fond memories of it, of me just flying across the map at like 3 feet per second or something ridiculous. But yes, for quality of life, it's definitely better to be able to have access to flight earlier, so yay for that. My villain character, I also took flight because I always pick flight. But he's a mastermind, and what masterminds do is they have pets. There's a few different classes on both sides of the aisle that have pets, and basically you get some direct damage powers and the ability to summon pets. And you also get tougher variants of them. And my villain has, I think, a mercenaries. I think I picked, because I was going just for just a regular guy with a load of like toughies. And there's also powers that will buff them as well and allow you to do different things with them. As you play, you'll go through and meet contacts. These are your mission givers. Missions are the quests in City of Heroes. And as you fight things, you will get drops. You immediately pick them up. You don't need to click on anything, or there's no shiny pile on the floor or anything like that to worry about. You immediately get them. You'll start off getting inspirations first, which are kind of like potions. So you'll get like health ones, damage ones, and you take the potion, you do more damage for like 30 seconds, or it heals you for 25% of your bar, stuff like that. Nothing too exciting, but very helpful in certain circumstances when you're toe-to-toe with a bunch of bad guys and you manage to draw another load of mobs as they wander behind you, and you're like, damn it, now I have 5. The other thing that you will normally pick up is enhancements, and these are socketable things that you can put into your powers that will enhance the effectiveness, whether it's the recharge rate of the power, so you can use it more often, the damage it does, the healing it provides. There's tons of them. Some are quite specific to different powers, like enhanced sleep, I think is one, or hold. So if you have any powers that do that, it's not a whole lot of good. And every other level, so in your first level you'll get a new power. When you level next, you'll be able to apply 2 slots onto your powers for enhancements to go into. Enhancements do come in. You have your basic stat ones, which are the ones you'll see most, but you also get special ones as well. I haven't found any yet in my new playthrough, but in the old one I was maxed out with them. I was a fucking beast. So it'd be called something weird, something thematic, and it will not just have like a buff of one thing, but it will have like a really big buff, or it will buff numerous things, and then you'll get the ability to complete sets of them, like Triton's armor, Triton's bodice, Triton's platform shoes, I don't know. But if you have all three of them equipped, then you get an extra bonus as well for having the entire set. That's going to be quite difficult in Rebirth, because where there's quite a small player base, comparatively to like MMOs like in the wild, like Black Desert or something like that. The store you can buy it from, the auction house, where I sort of got missing bits that completed power sets previously. It all works on in-game markets, so if someone's not selling it, you can't get it. It doesn't have like a stock where you can just buy whatever you want. So with the smaller player base, it's going to be quite difficult to complete those sets, unfortunately. But hey, who knows? It might grow, it might be bigger, and hopefully we'll get a few more players in there and more variety in the auction house, which would be nice. But outside of that, I mean, that is like the gist of the game. I still really like it. I've played it every day since I discovered it was a thing. I was like, I need a superhero fix, so I started installing champions, because, you know, what other option do you have? I finished DC Online and max leveled a character again, so I was like, oh, I want a superhero fix. And as it was installed, I was like, well, it's been a while since I checked. Why don't I check to see if City of Heroes was about? And yes, it was. So I was just absolutely happy, and I haven't played Champions yet, even though it isn't finished installing. If you just Google City of Heroes Rebirth, you can go to the website. You will need to install what's essentially an installer. I've got Sweet Tea. I think there's another one you can use as well, where you just click it and you can validate and pick where you want to put it, and it would download all the files and you just launch it through there. It's really easy. You will need to create an account on the Rebirth website in order to use it, but that's no big deal at all. It's just email address, username and password, so no worries there. And I'm having an absolute blast with it, because it's still one of my favorite MMOs. I mean, I love MMOs, but I'm very much a lone wolf player. So some MMOs which sort of force you to do like towards group-based content, I'm not so keen on. But City of Heroes, you can just, yeah, you can solo that bad boy. That's not a problem. I never found it to be a problem. There are like bigger instances you can go into if you want with a group, but I just don't bother. And there are open world events, like huge world bosses that will pop up every now and again, and all of the characters on the server will get a notification that it's happened. So if you want to go and try and take this thing out, you can all pile in on him, which is pretty cool, but I've never done it. So City of Heroes Rebirth, if you like superheroes, if you like MMOs, then it's free. You can just go and try it. You know, it is an old game. It's not, I mean, you can have it at modern resolutions now. I can't remember if that was in the original game. I wouldn't have thought it would have layered up to 4K though, to be honest. The footage you're seeing is captured in 1440, but I'll be rendering it at 1080. Just because that's what my editing software goes up to if I want 60. So, and I do. Who doesn't want 60? Hello. So yes, City of Heroes Rebirth. I love it. I am actually probably going to play it as soon as I finish doing this, because it's got its hooks back in me, and I really enjoy the leveling process. I really enjoy MMOs sort of as just a really long-term RPG rather than an actual MMO. That's kind of the appeal to me, having this character that you build up over hours and hours and hours and hours, and see them getting stronger and going through the storyline. So that's really the appeal in City of Heroes. Just tweaks my nipples in that regard. It really does, both of them. It's like Ah, very nice. Yes. That wasn't me actually tweaking my nipples. That was just me making a funny noise. But you get the point. You get the point. Anyway, guys, I think we're going to leave it there. As I say, if you like superheroes, check it out. It is an older game. You got to remember it closed down in 2012 and it was open for like 10 years ahead of that. So I think it was maybe 2004 it launched. So it's an older game. You don't go in expecting like Black Desert quality graphics where every woman is a voluptuous vixen, because they are in Black Desert. That's just the way it works. So with that in mind, if you just want a good old school MMO with superheroes, you cannot go wrong. And I highly encourage you all to go and try it. I'll probably get a lot of comments down below, well, hopefully, if from the 10 people that watch it, telling me how late I am to the party, and, you know, of course we know about this, you pillock. Yeah, well, what can I say? I'm a bit stupid. It happens. Anyway, guys, take it easy. I'll catch you next time.